Does your movie suck? Let's find out. 2 thumbs up. Simple gestures that anyone can make. That we make every day to represent our like or dislike for something. But when film critic Roger Ebert coined the phrase, he revolutionized the film world.
You say thumbs up or thumbs down instead of yes or no.
No longer did one have to be a film guru or student to talk about films in a deeper way.
Yeah, that shit is in this movie, and it is awesome.
Hello, I'm the Nostalgia.
No more talks of new wave cinema, mise-en-scène, or montage theory. Long gone were the days of turning up your nose to Hollywood cinema. This was the working man's film criticism, a no-nonsense approach where the average moviegoer could look inside their favorite films a bit deeper to find significance.
What am I looking for? I'm looking for films that come out of a director's quixotic, personal, passionate imagination, and not films that are manufactured to entertain large numbers of people efficiently, even though I am often among those entertained. I love to be entertained. I love those films, but the ones that really move me are the ones where a director felt that something had to be said, and he said it.
Take, for example, Mel Brooks' comedy short, The Critic, from 1963.
What the hell is this? Must be a cartoon. Shh.
This is the type of natural response and thinking that Ebert encouraged in his writings. Today we will be exploring not only the man who challenged the minds of many people, but also created a legacy and redefined what film criticism could be and who could use it. Roger Ebert was born in East Illinois on June 18, 1942. He started developing an interest in journalism in high school. During this time, Ebert explored his craft by writing sports columns for the News Gazette, as well as working as editor-in-chief for his high school's paper. But it was Mad magazine that would influence the critic's future writings the most. Ebert had this to say: "I learned to be a movie critic by reading Mad magazine. Mad's parodies made me aware of the machine inside the skin, of the way the movie might look original on the outside, while inside it was just recycling the same old dumb formulas."
And you know, it's never too late to learn on this job, Gene. If we thought the first Police Academy movie was kind of dumb, we hadn't seen anything yet.
I thought it was very dumb.
Very dumb.
I did not read the magazine. I plundered it for clues to the universe. Pauline Kael lost it at the movies. I lost it at Mad magazine. After high school, Ebert would pursue a college career, while also staying involved with Illinois' journalism scene. When looking for a better gig to finance his doctoral education, Ebert was referred to Jim Hogue, the editor of the Chicago Sun-Times. Later in 1966, he would be hired as one of its reporters and featured writers. Ebert became a film critic the following year in 1967. It is hard to say what made him such a compelling and fresh voice. His sentences were often complex, using refined diction. It gave him a voice of authority.
George Lucas told me in 1990 that after the third film, he put the series on hold until computers could catch up with the ideas in his imagination, and now it looks like they have.
But at the same time, he leveled with his audience and talked about the films he reviewed without the jargon of many pretentious critics.
The best movie I've seen so far this year was High Fidelity.
He spoke about films as relative and not absolute. He knew how to contextualize a film and therefore judge it fairly. In a review for the film, The Longest Yard, Ebert went on to say this: "I often practice a generic approach to film criticism, in which the starting point for a review is the question of what a movie sets out to achieve. The Longest Yard more or less achieves what most of the people attending it will expect. Most of its audiences will be satisfied enough when they leave the theater, although few will feel compelled to rent it on video to share with their friends. So, yes, it's a fair example of what it is. I would, however, be filled with remorse if I did not urge you to consider the underlying melancholy of this review and seek out a movie you could have an interesting conversation about. I have just come from 12 days at Cannes, during which several times each day I was reminded that movies can enrich our lives, instead of just helping us get through them. In this quote, you can sum up not only Ebert's writing style, but also his point of view as a movie enthusiast. Also around this time, Ebert met fellow film critic Pauline Kael at the New York Film Festival.
Who else is good in the
Pauline Kael.
Yeah.
She's never said a good thing about me yet.
But you like her.
Dirty old broad.
Kael had great respect for Ebert, saying that his work was the best film criticism being done in American newspapers. Going into the 70s, Ebert dabbled with screenwriting for a while. One of the most famous of these projects was his collaboration with director Russ Meyer on the film Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
And to get Russ Meyer to write, produce, and direct it.
Originally intended as a sequel to the 1967 film The Valley of the Dolls, the project transformed into a parody of not only the original film, but also of Hollywood conventions.
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls has all the elements. Drama, love, mystery, music. But the most important element is the guy who put it all together.
Ebert elaborated on this. I think of it as an essay on our generic expectations. It is an anthology of stock situations, characters, dialogue, cliches, and stereotypes, set to music and manipulated to work as exposition and satire at the same time. It is cause and effect, a wind-up machine to generate emotions, pure movie without message.
Would simultaneously be a satire, a serious melodrama, a rock musical, a comedy, a violent exploitation picture, a skin flick, and a moralistic expose of the oft-times nightmarish world of show business.
Ebert was recognized for his efforts in 1975 when he received the Pulitzer Prize for Criticism. This also marked the beginning of his collaboration with fellow film critic Gene Siskel. The two changed film history when they premiered their show, Sneak Previews, on September 4th. The show's premise was that Ebert and Siskel would review the latest movie releases, looking at clips, discussing, and even arguing what its overall flaws and strengths were.
But first we'll review Michael Caine and Pierce Brosnan in the Fourth Protocol.
And then Gene Hackman and Kevin Costner star in No Way Out. And we have a third thriller, too, if you're interested. What do you mean, two thrillers? How about something like this? It's Thriller Week on Siskel and Ebert, and we've got three big ones.
Ebert's personality was as vibrant as ever. He now had someone else's opinions to work off of. Siskel and Ebert created such tension in their debates on screen.
No, every week counts. You read it then. You ad-lib it. I'll do nothing. Let him do whatever he wants.
The two continued the show through various producers and name changes up until Siskel's death in 1999. In a 2009 article dedicated to remembering his friend and colleague, Ebert wrote this: Gene Siskel and I were like tuning forks. Strike one and the other would pick up the same frequency. Sometimes this took the form of camaraderie, sometimes shared opinions, sometimes hostility, but we were aware. In 2002, Ebert was diagnosed with cancer in his thyroid gland. This was successfully removed that same year, but returned 4 years later in the right side of his jaw. After complications during surgery, Ebert could not drink, eat, speak, and required the use of a feeding tube. For a year, Ebert was out of work but returned to the public's eye, his wife speaking for him during interviews. Eventually, the critic was able to speak for himself with voice synthesizer software.
I may have things to be depressed about, but I am not depressed. My life seems full again.
On April 4th, 2013, Ebert passed away on his way back home from the hospital after several complications and surgeries. But Ebert's memory did not die with him. Many critics, filmmakers, and television personalities spoke endearingly of the film critic. He wrote with passion through a real knowledge of film and film history, and in doing so, helped many movies find their audiences. He put television criticism on the map. Oprah Winfrey called Ebert's death the end of an era and credited him with being responsible for the syndication of her show. He even influenced institutions after his death. In 2015, the University of Illinois announced the Ebert Center, a program that teaches Ebert's approach to criticism as well as encouraging students to think more deeply about film. Roger Ebert taught us that you don't have to be a film student to talk about film thoughtfully. All you need is a pair of eyes, ears, and a love for film. Here's 2 thumbs up to Roger Ebert.